Many thanks to fellow Extraction Squad, one of the original DayZ servers, Clash Vanilla servers, Sergeant Pepper servers, Sea of Doors Cloud, We That Remain Roleplay, the Struggle Community, the Karma Crew servers, DayZ Curriculum leaderboards, and Dots for making this video possible. Update 1.27 has drastically increased how loud our footsteps are to other players, and it makes it very easy to know exactly where other players are around you, even if you can't see them. So in this video we're going to be looking at how much louder we stomp around compared to last patch, and go over the best shoes, surfaces, and movement stances for ultimate stealth. The maximum possible distance footsteps can be heard at has actually been reduced this patch, not increased, but how loud these sounds are has been increased. The maximum distances each movement stance is set to 50 meters in the last patch, so below these distances is when the engine will begin to render footstep sounds for other players to hear nearby, reduced to 40 meters for all of them, apart from sprinting, which was increased to 60 meters at a maximum. Now, while it is technically possible to hear players at these distances, you won't be able to do it without maxing out your sound settings and possibly destroying your eardrums along with your speakers. Footstep sounds will fade out for the average user long before these distances are going to be reached. For example, here is the barefoot running on grass sound in the last patch. Yet in this patch, you can hear it further away. This is due directly to volume increases in all sounds that our characters make while moving, as shown here in decibels at 10 meters away from the last patch to this one. On average, this is around a 30% increase, so instead of hearing players at 17 meters while they're running, it's now going to be 25 meters, and when they're sprinting, it was 25 meters, now it's going to be around 35 meters instead. This also means that all distances, movement sounds will be heard 30% easier, but on some surfaces, it will be increased more. One example is a twig snapping sound introduced in Forest this patch, making running through forest much louder and more distinctive than last patch, along with metal surfaces now having new sound effects when you run on them. The faster you travel across these surfaces, the more frequently you will get these additional sound effects, and they do make the sounds on the surfaces much louder, which also applies to Infected too, so Infected can trigger these sound effects. This is because Infected use the exact same footstep sound that we, our characters, use, which also means Infected are going to be easier to hear this patch too. But do note that just because the volume of these sounds has increased, it doesn't mean that Infected can hear us easier. That's a different stat in the game files, allowing us to stealth kill just as effectively as last patch. When it comes to stealthing up to other players though, it will be much harder than last patch with these volume increases, so if you want to stealth up to or away from other players, understanding footstep variables is going to be essential now. There are three main variables when it comes to footstep sounds: which footwear you're using, the movement stance you're travelling in, and the surface that you're travelling on. Starting with footwear, there are three different types of footwear sound files across all footwear in DayZ: barefoot, shoes, and boots, with barefoot being much quieter than shoes and boots as shown here in these waveforms. Compared to last patch, the waveforms for the three type of footstep sounds have increased a lot, with barefoot running now being as loud as wearing shoes in the last patch while running, so it's going to be much louder. You won't be able to stealth around as easily now, but it is still much quieter than shoes and boots. Now, the sound each footwear type makes is dependent on the movement stance that you're currently in or what you're currently travelling in, so running, crouched, prone, these are the different movement stances in DayZ, with these 6 being the most used. For the prone stance, it doesn't matter which footwear you have on, you will get the same sound effect, doesn't matter if it's boots or barefoot, but for all the rest of them, it does different sound effects get added on top of the base sound effects, with the percentages on the right showing us how much louder shoes and boots are compared to being barefoot. For most stances then, shoes and boots, surprisingly, are pretty much the same when it comes to volume to the ears of a player, so only barefoot will give you a noticeable stealth advantage, best shown in this chart here. This chart displays the decibels on the left and the footwear plus movement combo to the bottom at 10 meters away, and also displays how loud moving while prone is too. As you can see to the left here, this is prone, this is very loud, and running barefoot on grass is actually quieter than scraping your body across the floor. The other popular surfaces to travel on in DayZ are here, and again displayed in decibel volume, running, and at 10 meters away. From these values, grass is quite obviously the quietest surface to run on, by quite a lot in fact, with the other surface types the loudest ones being 50% louder than grass to travel on. Combining all three footstep variables, we can find the very best footwear, movement and surface combo to remain stealthy, which if you've been listening so far, you've probably guessed it's being barefoot and sticking to grassy surfaces. However, movement is a lot more complicated, as quieter movement stances come with slower movement. The worst movement type then is obviously being prone. It's slow, it's loud, but it does give you the benefit of blending into the ground a lot better, with sprinting being the fastest speed but also being the loudest, making the standard run appear to be the middle ground that's good between stealth and speed, which is 22% quieter than sprinting but a huge 37% slower. Crouch running isn't far behind the standard running though, which is 45% slower than sprinting but a very respectable 62% quieter, nearly 3 times quieter compared sprinting to running, for just 14% slower than running, making crouch running easily the best compromise when it comes to stealth and speed. And while barefoot on grass, it's the second quietest way that we can move our characters around. Now you do risk getting a bleed without footwear on. This is a minor bleed, you don't need to fix this right away. You've got 5 minutes to fix it with some clean bandages. You won't lose much blood. Health is the main reason that people die anyway, and the bleed sound effect you get will only be heard at 10 meters away, which is a lot quieter than your footsteps during any stance. As for what to avoid when you suspect that a player is nearby and they haven't heard you yet, avoid running and sprinting entirely. Do the crouch running if you want to move around quickly while stealthed. Do not go onto loud surfaces such as wooden floors. They're one of the loudest surface types, which FYI, if you're on grass, which is the quietest one you should be sticking to, it reduces your chance to get a bleed on your foot by a massive amount compared to other surfaces. And try to avoid going prone and moving. Going prone is fine. If you move while prone, you're going to make a lot of noise. While this info is great for stealth, every player out there likely has a different sound setup to use, so some players will hear you at 35 meters if their volume is dangerously high, or others might be listening to Taylor Swift in the background and they can't hear your footsteps at 10 meters. The most important factor would be the sound device that you're using, so a headset is going to be much better than a TV that's several meters away from you, but the performance of that device is also really important, so a half decent headset with a slightly higher volume setting than normal is going to help you a lot when it comes to detecting other players' footsteps. However, don't make the mistake of increasing volume just so you can hear somebody further away, just slightly further away. It's not worth risking your hearing for, and in the future you need to increase your volume settings more because you've damaged it in the past and you're not getting any younger, but also because every single creature on this earth flinches when it comes to sudden and loud sounds like gunshots, like artillery strikes. Now, I don't care if you're an absolute Giga Chad and you're listening to this video from a prison cell which you're in because you killed an endangered rhino with your left butt cheek. Flinching because of a super loud sound is normal. It is a sign of good survival instincts, in fact, and most of us have good survival instincts, resulting in you flinching at a moment where every single fraction of a second counts. Let me know your take on these changes in this patch, or if you have any stealthy tips that you can add to this list. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.